All right, good evening, everybody. It is Steve with Real Progressives. I'm going to talk about something that is happening in my own backyard, Pennsylvania. What a beautiful place it is. And it's a microcosm of everything that's wrong in America. There is a school in not too far away land where parents who cannot afford their student lunches are having threats brought to them by the actual principal and other school leaders, sending letters out threatening them that if they don't pay their debt, their kids are going to go in foster care. No joke. Official shit. Official stuff. Now, they're saying these parents are obviously not able to feed their children. So they're trying to say because they can't afford the student debt, school lunch debt, that they are somehow or another unable to care for their child and use this. Well, the officials have come back, the officials that actually run the program that are, child services, are saying it's bullshit. That's not going to happen. That's not what's going to happen. They warn the school to stop the fear porn. But I'm going to go ahead and read this to you because I want you to know how serious this stuff is. It's amazing, but this is it. So this right here is in U.S. News. It says, parents told they could lose their kids over unpaid school lunches. A Pennsylvania school district is warning that their children could end up in foster care if parents don't pay overdue school lunch bills. Kingston, PA. A Pennsylvania school district is warning that children could end up in foster care if their parents do not pay overdue school lunch bills. The letters sent recently to about 1,000 parents in Wyoming Valley West School District have led to complaints from parents and a stern rebuke from Luzerne County Child Welfare authorities. The district says that it is trying to collect more than $20,000 and that other methods to get parents to pay have not been successful. 4 parents owe at least $450 apiece. The letter claims the unpaid bills could lead to dependency hearings and removal of their children for not providing them with food. You can be sent to dependency court for neglecting your child's right to food. The result may be your child being taken away from your home and placed in foster care, the letter read. After complaints, district officials announced they plan to send out a less threatening letter next week. Luzerne County's manager and Child Welfare Agency director have written the superintendent insisting the district stop making what they call false claims. Their letter calls the district's action troubling and misrepresentation of how the Children and Youth Services Department and its foster care program operate. Wyoming Valley West's lawyer, Charles Coslett, said he did not consider the letters to be threatening. Hopefully that gets their attention, and it certainly did, didn't it? I mean, if you think about it, you're here this morning because some parents cried foul because he or she doesn't want to pay a debt attributed to feeding their kids. How shameful. The conservative, disgusting, vile behavior of shaming people for the ability to afford food. What a fucker. The district's federal programs director, Joseph Muth, told WNEP-TV the district had considered serving peanut butter and jelly sandwiches to students with delinquent accounts, but received legal advice warning against it. School district officials say they plan to pursue other legal avenues to get the lunch money, such as filing a district court complaint or placing liens on properties. For the coming year, the district will qualify for funding to provide free lunches to all students. The district underwrote free lunches for 4 elementary and middle schools during the 2018 and 19 year, and WNEP-TV said school officials suspect some parents did not pay their lunch bills as a form of protest. As a form of protest. Never let it be said that people can't afford to live. Never let it be said that people can't afford to feed their children. Because, this economy is so fucking grand. Everyone's doing so wonderful. It's just peachy keen, isn't it? And the worst part about this is, and I want you to understand why I chose this, aside from the fact that it's in Pennsylvania. I often talk about modern monetary theory, and there's a good reason for it, because most of your favorite media outlets choose to ignore it. They choose to ignore any meaningful solutions because they get better clicks from complaining about what's wrong in the world. They don't get any clicks when they talk about solutions. They only get clicks when they whine and complain about what's wrong. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between our local and our states and their budget and the federal government's budget, and talk about how we could alleviate problems such as basic needs, which are food for children, regardless of whether they pass the lottery of life with getting a parent that could afford their school lunch. States are very different animals. States and local governments are very, very different animals from our federal government. Unfortunately, states are tax dependent. They are dependent on revenues, and they are dependent on bonds and other grants and funding from a host of different places. States are not able to create the U.S. dollar freely to absorb and pay for pensions and other such things. So states really are gripping with a reduced amount of revenue. And then they got the double gun against their head, and that is that if they don't keep taxes low, businesses flee their area, and then jobs dry up, and then those states start just bleeding people, bleeding revenue, and they become insolvent, and then they become the next Detroit, Buffalo, former Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, you name it. That's what happens in the race to the bottom, like Kansas, etc. And because of that, it's easy to look at the school system and these parasites that are sending out these letters. Your kids could end up in foster care if you don't pay your bill. These debtor-type prisons, these situations, because of some keystrokes, some digits they don't have enough of, their child will be taken from them. Their inability to balance their checkbook will take their children from them. It's absolutely ridiculous that our skill with a checkbook, or lack thereof, could be the difference between spending time in jail, having our kids taken from us, and a million other things. Folks, many people are not good with money. They just aren't. They weren't taught how to do it. They don't understand how to do it, and they don't have enough of it. And the states themselves are all cash poor. Some of them are better off than others. You look at California, they've got some unique situations there with an economy so large that they can absorb an awful lot of hits. Very, very wealthy state. But most states, they're highly dependent on tax revenues, because taxes really do fund spending at the local and state level. States and local governments are like your household budget. They have to have an income. They can't spend what they don't have. They can borrow just like we can borrow. But there comes a point where their credit runs dry. And that's when things start getting really chippy. And that's when they start bringing different vultures in to pick apart and be like a steward of the state, if you will. You've seen this with all sorts of things like pension programs that have gone dry. And I mean, 2 years ago, and I have no idea what it is this year, I haven't checked recently, but the state of Pennsylvania had a close to $700 million budget shortfall. $700 million. For a state, that's a lot of money. And they got to get friggin' loans. They've got to get bonds. They've got to do all kinds of things to try and avoid going under themselves. So the federal government doesn't suffer from such shortfalls, does it? The federal government is the currency issuer. So when you see a situation like these states, in particular the school area, the school district, where these parents haven't been able to afford to pay their student lunches. The federal government could easily handle these things. We should not be having a gun put to our heads for needs-based things. I don't care if people squander their money. I don't care if they lead a life of debauchery. I don't care if they're deserving. I don't think anyone's undeserving of food. I don't think anyone's undeserving of a life free of fear of destitution. So you look at this and you say to yourself, what the fuck is wrong with this school system sending out letters to tell parents their kids are going to be taken from them because they can't afford student lunches? Now, when you think about this, raise your hand if you've ever been one of the people that has said, we need to reduce the deficit. We need to reduce government spending. We need to reduce the federal government spending. It's spending things it doesn't have money for. Where's it getting this money? Raise your hand if you've ever said that. Raise your hand if you ever thought your taxes were funding the federal government. Well, it's a lie. It's not true. It doesn't happen that way. So when you see a school and you see a district and you see a township and you see a city and you see a state that can't meet its obligations, whose pensions, they're having to make tough choices and eliminate pensions. They're having to make tough choices and not build the bridges up to spec or get the kids everything they need in the schools. You got to remember how this ball rolls downhill. You got to understand how the flow goes. When the federal government doesn't spend money into the economy, it trickles down to the state level, and then the states start getting desperate and start fighting for other businesses to lure them into their state. And the race to the bottom amongst the non-currency issuing states and municipalities and townships, you name it, start cannibalizing each other, slashing taxes, slashing services. And eventually people end up in the crosshairs of the destitution that brings. This school scenario is but one small but easy to see situation. Some of the more complex ones that could be used for this scenario would be Flint, Michigan's water situation. The aftermath of the hurricanes that passed through Puerto Rico and the rebuilding efforts. Another prime example. Puerto Rico doesn't create its own money. It is a net importer because it's an island nation that only has minimal exports. So in order for it to survive, it has to borrow money or go in debt. And what ends up happening? They better have a lot of tourism dollars. They better have a lot of sugar cane sales. Otherwise, they're in debt. And when a major catastrophe comes through, they're ill-equipped to secure the real resources that they need to rebuild. Now, unfortunately, the neoliberal perspective is for them to go into debt, for some conservator to come in and take over, or to rip everything down, gentrify the state, and get rid of the indigenous folks and start letting the rich people have their island paradise. Detroit was gutted of its artwork, of its history. It was gutted because of its debt. And Detroit still looks like a nuclear bomb went off. And there's no reason for it at all. I want you to think about what it's like to be sitting there with your children. You don't have enough money to pay your mortgage. You're wondering when your house is going to get foreclosed on. You raise your deductions on your paycheck because if you don't have more money coming in, you won't be able to pay your electric bill, and then the IRS comes after you. Little people are trapped if they don't know everything there is to know about how to handle their money. They are screwed. States and local communities have to take care of those people when they're screwed. And because they don't create currency, they begin threatening them because they find profit in jailing people. And the debtor prison scenarios are very, very real. It's another market-based solution to make people toe the line. I want you to understand the way money is spent into existence so you can understand why states struggle and why local communities struggle and why these dipshits start threatening parents for taking their kids because they can't afford to pay for student lunches. Federal government is a currency issuer, period. Somebody brings up Jekyll, I'll punch him in the neck, slap him in the forehead, fart in their face, do something to wake them from their stupor. When we start talking about cutting the federal government spending, it affects every community in America. The wealthy don't get hurt because they've already got theirs. But it starts at the bottom where it hurts the most. And then that bleeds its way throughout society. And that's when people start making really bad choices, right? Those are the bad choices the conservative Democrats and conservative Republicans point at you and wag their finger, telling you should have done better. You're just trying to survive. You're just trying to make do. You're just trying to get through the next day. We're breeding more homeless people in America than we are kids that are reasonably healthy and happy. We are just churning out homelessness, poverty. And the problem is the mean, the average, is so skewed because the wealthy have so much and the poor have so little. And then you see these news things where they're chasing the little people down to bitch about $450 a student lunches. $450. If that doesn't get you angry without understanding economics, imagine that the $450 that those people got are freely made when Congress writes a bill with keystrokes. Know that Congress alone has the authority to create money. Congress wrote the Federal Reserve Act in 1913. Congress has the power of the purse, Article 1, Section 8 of your U.S. Constitution. Because we refuse to learn this stuff, and we refuse. It's so simple. You almost have to not want to get this. You got to choose not to get it. You got to make an active decision to say, I don't get that the federal government creates money when it spends. Every time. Every single time. The government creates new money. Every single time it spends money. Not sometimes. It doesn't print money. Every single time the government spends money, it spends new money into existence. Into existence. And every single time the federal government taxes money, it deletes that money. So you're not just randomly printing endless money. The taxes don't fucking pay for anything at the federal level. It's used as a brake or a gas pedal on the economy when it's overheating. It's a tool. It's nothing more than that. It drives the need for currency. But at the state and local level, the money spent into the economy from the federal government has to matriculate its way through the entire economy. And when we buy exports, the money leaves the economy. When we save and we put stuff in our 401k or we put it in our bank account or whatever, that money is effectively removed from the economy. A buying decision has been delayed. One person's spending is another person's income. So when people save, it seems weird, but it's oxymoronic. It's true. The fact is that it hurts the economy. It's good for the individual. We all want to save for a rainy day. But if we're not spending, other people aren't having an income. See how crazy this is? So when the federal government starts tightening and starts having debt ceiling talks and starts making you eat your peas, Obama, starts making government more efficient, Al Gore, Bubba, when they start reforming welfare, Bubba, and eliminating spending, calling it wasteful spending. Tell me what wasteful spending is. What are you, hoarding dollars that are created every time they spend? Do you not get this? Is it really that difficult to understand? The United States government neither saves dollars nor has to stash them somewhere. It spends the money into existence every single time. And that goes for Social Security too. So why are poor parents in a local school district being hassled and sent hate mail from their schools saying that their kids are going to be sent to foster care if they don't pony up that money? Do you understand how unnecessary this is? I want you to really grok this. I want you to get this. Poverty, homelessness, food insecurity, generational poverty, debt, student debt, all this debt is a political choice. It is a political choice to enslave and indebt people for things they desperately need, like food, like health care, like an education so that they can serve their community or get a job and take care of their families. Shelter, you name it. There is an intentional push within our neoliberal culture to choke off fiscal spending, which is what the federal government does, and push each and every single one of us to a bank to get loans to freaking go into debt. This is their idea of a good economy. And you know what? They'll get away with it. You know why? Because you're going to watch an alternative media person that's cracking up about Donald Trump's tweets, or worrying about some candidate that isn't going to get elected, or running around chasing headline after headline, or worse, talking about Area 51. And these people that are out there suffering, they're about to give up because they know damn well that activists won't stay focused long enough to be of any use to them. And that's a damn shame, isn't it? Because these politicians are going to serve the people the way the people act like they need to be served. So if boneheaded voters believe that the federal government should live like a household budget and not spend beyond its means when it has no means, it creates the means every single time it spends. It's like putting a gun to your junk and capping your mushroom cap. Every single time you demand the federal government reduce wasteful spending, you create another scenario where some parent is going to get a letter saying their kids are going to go to foster care if they don't pony up for their student lunch debt. Even stinking Rush Limbaugh, of all people, has come out and realized that fiscal conservatism is moronic. If Rushbo can get this, with one half of his brain tied behind his back, you can get it too. Don't let the right wing get this and then fuck it up. We need to make sure that people are taken care of so no more kids are threatened to be taken from their homes because mom and dad can't pay the stinking student loan debt. Or student loans too. Fuck God. Well, when I was a little boy, I paid my student debt. It was only about $1,200. I don't care. You got a basket weaving debt for $127,000. You stupid son of a bitch. I think everybody should pay their debts. You took that student debt on, you should pay it. Conservative logic, my friends. It's vile, revolting, repulsive, unworthy. But the left says the same stupid shit. And they're out there hanging out at Area 51 and crap like that. So what are you going to do? Who can we count on to fight for these people? Who? The cool kids who call MMT a cult? Now, you can't count on them for shit. You can't even count on them for nothing. Except for meeting you at some expensive coffee shop and getting some skinny latte. Maybe putting out a good meme. Who else can you count on? Folks, the real 1%, unfortunately, the people that understand how economics works. The other 99 are happy and content, pointing their finger at the poor people that can't afford the school lunch debt. And that's a fucking shame. I'm Steve Grumbine with Real Progressives. And I hope that you guys will help us get the word out. You know, I'm watching these alternative media groups out there racking up money. And they're just covering current events. Hey, here's my opinion about this. Hey, here's my opinion about that. We're trying to build an organization here to take on the interests that keep us struggling, that keep the economy working only for the rich. We're here to bring about a Green New Deal. We're focused. We're not jumping all over the place. And we need your support like you wouldn't believe. We need your support more than the clickbait people need your support. We really need your support. And come tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., another Macro and Cheese podcast will come out. Podcasting is super expensive. I don't know if you realize this or not, but doing it right anyway. And we're trying really hard to do it right. Because we want people to take what we say seriously. We want to make sure that we can change this thing. And we need your help. That means we need donations badly. We need your help sharing our content so others hear it. It's not just clickbait. The stuff we're talking about, you're not hearing it elsewhere. We're trying to help our movement win, because the question of how are you going to pay for it always jumps up out of the tall grass and bites us. Folks, we need your help. Can we count on you? I hope so. Because we've been doing this for a long time. And for those of you who do give, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Catherine class, I want to thank you so much for your steadfast donations and devotion to our work. And all you others out there, I want to thank you for helping. But we need even more. We really do. We're about $9,000 away from our target in terms of monthly donations. Sounds like a lot. Well, it is a lot. We need your help. Thank you very much. Have a good night, everybody. I'm out.